Hi, and welcome to the Hodl Boomer Podcast. My name is Steve. I'm one of the hosts of the Hodl Boomer Podcast. We're hodlers, and obviously, we're boomers. So, hey, we're celebrating this year. We're celebrating, in a week, 250 years of wonderful stuff, honestly, of the birth of a nation. Does a lot of good in the world. But we have to take an honest look at what we've done lately. What the banking system has done, as we've been discussing in The Creature from Jekyll Island, what's happened with our money. It's no longer sound money. It's kind of fake. It's called fiat, and it really just doesn't mean anything. I'm going to share some insights today that I think I'm in a unique position to share, because when we celebrated the Bicentennial in 1976, I was graduating from high school, and I want to share some thoughts and some memories about how things were back then and compare that today, the Semiquincentennial. Let's just call it 250th anniversary. It's easier. But think about this. Back in 76, a can of Campbell's tomato soup cost 10 to 15 cents. Today, it's $1.28. You think that's just inflation? Maybe, but what we're really talking about is what I've lived through, 50 years and two Americas, two very different feelings about America, and what honest money has had to do with all of it. Money has changed. Communities have changed. And what I can tell you, well, honestly, it's really best illustrated by me sharing a file. Let me do that real quickly. I will share this graphic from What TF Happened in 1971.com. Take a look at this. Since the inception of Campbell's Soup around 1890 to about, I'll be darned, 1971, the price was pretty much the same. A can of Campbell's Soup didn't change in value. It was just as hearty as it was a long time ago. The ingredients hadn't changed. The packaging really hadn't changed. But in 71, a lot of things started happening. And now we're, at what? 800% of the price of the Campbell's Soup from 1971, 75 in there. That's a pretty dramatic contrast. If you just look at what's happened, that kind of indicates what's happened in the nation. Things haven't become more valuable, certainly by hundreds of percentage points, but the price has gone up. So the money is shrinking. The money has gotten worth a lot less than it has been. So we're going to discuss that today and talk it through. Again, I want to welcome you seekers, but also I hope I'm talking to some younger people too that really need to hear this. As I mentioned, I celebrated the Bicentennial in 1976. A kid, wide-eyed, world was in front of me. And I watched how things happened, and over time, as I started working, I saw some things unfold, but they really haven't come into sharp focus until lately. So this one's a little personal. It's a little bit of a reflection. Before we dive in, I'd like for you just to take a quick look at our sponsor, hodlandtees.org. There you can find t-shirts like this one, like many others. We just want you to wear the message so that these days, during the times of bargain pricing on Bitcoin, really, bargain pricing on Bitcoin, we can help support this podcast and our channel overall. hodlandtees.org, promo code WELCOME10. That'll get you started. Support the show. Start conversations with one another. So just one mention here of our sponsor, and we'll move on. Why this episode matters to you? Well, you can read history, or you can talk to someone or hear from someone who lived through it. Today, I'm really going to answer two big questions. How has money changed, and how have communities changed? Because I think these things are tied together. And if we want to improve our life in America, we're going to have to address both of those. At the end of our short discussion today, I'll have a simple suggestion for seekers, no matter what your age is. Let's begin with talking about the 70s, what I remember about 1976. The Bicentennial was kind of a cool celebration. A lot of pride, a lot of optimism about the future. The economy was not in great shape in 1976. It was tough. I graduated from college in 1980, and it was roughly the same. It was not a tremendous amount of optimism. However, daily life during those years really was more personal. We were a lot more connected. We didn't stare at screens at all. There's been a recent study that says because we stare at so many screens, this generation of kids is the first one to have less cognitive ability than their parents. Now, I stare at screens too often, but I don't think I suffered the same way the kids have suffered today. I dealt with people. I communed with people. I talked to people. Daily life was really about my neighborhood and arguably my state, if we would go on vacation. It was characterized by things like unlocked doors. As kids, we played outside. We basically on Saturdays left in the morning, and as long as we were home by dinner time or even dark, if we let our parents know that, things were fine. And we didn't talk to anybody but other kids all day long. We could be neighborhoods over miles away, and my parents just didn't worry. They worried if we took off and didn't tell them we were going, but they didn't worry about us being off on our own because there were other parents around, other neighborhood adults that we would run into, and they knew that we were essentially safe. The price of things has changed dramatically. I gave you the Campbell soup example, but that really extends to a lot of things. Gas was 60 cents a gallon. The house my parents bought, just a middle-income house, was $30,000. And we thought we lived in a really wonderful neighborhood, which honestly we did. I can talk about that in a minute too. Dangers existed, of course, but you knew your neighbors. You looked out for each other. The world felt smaller. It felt safer. It was much more grounded. It was really kind of peaceful, but we didn't recognize it as much. What people were talking about back then was stagflation, the oil crisis. In 71, of course, we went off the gold standard, and we've talked about that before. But essentially, Nixon said dollars don't equal gold anymore. The Nixon shock was very fresh. The fiat experiment was just beginning. Boomers like me were graduating from high school, either getting a job and honestly buying a house or raising a family. It was achievable on one income back then. Tough, but achievable. Wages and prices were misaligned. They didn't equate as they had the prior 200 years. But a single income could still support a household. The dollar still had some purchasing power. Value was exchanged. This is pre-Bitcoin. Well, pre-Bitcoin, obviously. Pre-internet money or pre-internet, honestly. Everything was analog. There were technologies popping open that were making us interested. I remember Atari video games coming out, and that was really amazing. But we couldn't spend hours and hours and hours doing that because we were motivated to get outside, motivated to enjoy life, enjoy other people. Let's contrast that with what's going on today. In 2026, graduation is a little bit different than it was in 1976. Today, kids have to look forward to student debt, housing being unaffordable, knowing that two incomes, and my adult daughter and her husband and young child, they both work and they struggle to make ends meet. Two incomes is barely enough. Campbell's soup isn't worth 10 times more than it was because the soup is 10 times better. It's worth 10 times more because the dollar is 10 times weaker. Do you understand? Wages haven't kept up. Productivity went up. People are more efficient with what they do, but purchasing power has gone down. And as I mentioned last time we were together, the biggest doomsday mechanism we see is the Federal Reserve System. That's a quote from a creature from Jekyll Island. I'm not talking about politics here. This isn't a red versus blue thing. This is theft through the debasement of the currency. Honestly, when I look back on 1976 from a perspective of 2026, I notice a few things. I'm certainly older. I saw pictures of myself in 76 and I'm like, who's that guy? Other things that have happened are financial. The debasement has hit me hard. And it's amazing when you just stop, smell the roses, and think about the way things were. Think in decades, or if you're my age, think in 50-year increments. It's amazing when you just stop and look backward. So next we have to ask ourselves, what can we do about it? The mechanics are pretty simple. Beginning in 1971 and continuing thereafter, lots of things happened to the money. It got changed because it no longer had solid money behind it, no longer had gold behind it. It's got nothing but the promise that it's worth something behind it. The full faith and credit of the U.S. government. What does that mean? Money can't be exchanged for solid money until recently, until Bitcoin came on board. We're not going to discuss the attributes of Bitcoin in this podcast, but we are going to ask you to go look at it. We're going to make a couple of suggestions at the end about books you should look at. Let's talk a little bit about community in 76 versus now. Back in 1976, I remember my friend group was not large. I had friends that were the kids on the block, kids from my school, kids from my church, maybe 10 or 20 close friends, all local, all people I knew well in person, knew their parents, they knew my parents. We knew each other. We were a community. Friendships were deep because they were limited and they were local. There's some warm nostalgia I feel about those days because things felt constant. They didn't feel as fleeting as I'm going to unfriend you because you're cheering for the wrong team, the red team versus the blue team. It was crazy. How many friends did I have back then? Real friends? A dozen? Maybe a couple of dozen max. We spent time together. We rode bikes. We played ball. We talked face to face. An interesting thing that I remember is all this discussion that really began about racism. And I was thinking, oh, well, it must be out there somewhere. But it wasn't in my world. If we had a friend that was of a different ethnic variety, I'll say it that way, they could have been Asian, they could have been black, they could have been South American. We didn't know. We just knew they were pals. And we would hang out with them. And this racism stuff was just not in our forefront. As I said, we spent time together playing ball, talking face to face. There were no notifications. There was nothing, no computer in my pocket that beeped and said, somebody's trying to get a hold of you. And it amazes me today that when that little thing in my pocket goes off, I feel compelled to answer it. Back then, if you needed to get in touch with somebody right away, You called their house on the telephone. If they weren't there, well, tell them I called when he or she comes back. You waited. You had patience. You endured until you could talk to them. There were no likes with people liking your comment. There was no hours of doom scrolling on this device in your pocket. It was just a simpler time. My community was physical. It was tangible. I was accountable to it. You start to get the impression that it was a little better? Well, I think so. Today, in the era of, I won't call it Facebook, that's for old guys like me, but in the era of social networking, you may have 1,000 friends or 1,000 followers or 1,500 followers, however many it is, 10,000. But you don't know those people. You don't know them. You know them by texting with them, but you haven't invested with them face to face. You don't know who they are. They don't mean anything to you because you have not invested in them. My daughter, who obviously is a young woman now raising her own family, she talks about community a lot and is really good at building a community. And you know what? It has nothing to do with Facebook. It has to do with the people that she and her husband choose to hang out with and choose to invest in. And it's beautiful. It's worthwhile. So let's get back to talking about friends on a social media platform. Think about it. If you had to move, how many of the people that you know through social media would help you move? Not many. I mean, it's a simple thing. I'm asking you to invest in me, asking you to take a Saturday off and help me move my stuff from one place to another. Not many of those people are going to help you. What you have through Facebook and X and all these different things are kind of an outrage economy. You take turns being outraged or reading about outrage, and you get in these dopamine loops that are very, very real. But it's an artificial connection. We were way more connected back then than we are now. But today we're connected in an artificial way and more isolated than ever. So here's where we are. The money is broken because it's inflating everything away. The dollar value is not the same as it was even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, much less 50 years ago. So the dollar is broken, the money's broken, and the community's fabric is broken. Are those connected? I think so. I think so. I'm not going to go deep into celebrating the realization that there have been large organizations behind this. I'll just say it has. The breakdown of the family, the artificial pumping up of race relations, all of these things have happened to try to break down our culture. The stuff that we're allowed to eat, I shouldn't say it that way, the stuff that we have available to eat is horrible for us. I read a recent study on what McDonald's food really is. I won't go into it here. It'll amaze you. It'll turn your stomach. It's poison. There's so much poison in our food and our food supply. So what are my suggestions? What to do about this? Well, continue to be a seeker. Don't just stack sats in silence. Study Bitcoin. If you haven't gotten any Bitcoin yet, read the Bitcoin Standard. Listen to Saifedean. Listen to guys like, again, this guy, Saifedean Moose. Listen to Jeff Booth. Listen to Robert Breedlove. Secondly, you can go to a local meetup. You can join the Orange Pill app. You can talk to me there. Talk to thousands of other Bitcoiners who push for local meetups in person. And I can't stress that highly enough. Don't let this be just an electronic interaction. Go meet people. Listen to their stories, how they get into Bitcoin, what Bitcoin means to them. This is not a cult, a club for making money. This is the recognition that the dollar is broken. You can read Lynn Alden's book. I think it's called The Dollar is Broken. It's true. We have to replace it with something else, and we think Bitcoin is that thing. You can rebuild your community. You can rebuild what we've lost over the past several years. You can build some local trust with some people. Face-to-face community, sound money, thinking like you think, different perspectives from different economies, different cultures. It's really important. Bitcoin isn't just an asset. It's a movement backward toward honest systems, honest weights and measures. Here's my Christian commercial. I'm not suggesting that all of you need to be a Christian. I'm not going to beat you over the head with this. But what I am saying is that honest weights and measures are God's delight. Fairness in money delights him. Because if you have fair money, you're not chasing the increase or supposed increase in the money. You're just dealing with honest weights and measures. It's practical. Practical, that's a bad word. It's not even a word. It's practical. It's actionable. It's encouraging. So it's important. Just to recap, I have lived through a lot of years of this slow unraveling. I can see it happening. I am bound to do something about it because I love my kids and I love my grandkids, and I want them to grow up with what I grew up with. At this 250-year celebration, I'm remembering vividly the 200-year celebration. And on balance, America is a good thing. It's the best thing we've got, best place in the world, and the only place with a shot of unraveling what we've wrapped up in the past 50 years. I know we talked a lot about the soup can story. It isn't cute. It's a warning. It's right there in black and white. They couldn't change the packaging. They couldn't charge you the same price and reduce the packaging, much like the Ripples potato chips. If you buy them, you've got a bag that's this big, and you crush it, and it's got maybe this much potato chips in it. That has happened in the economy. But Bitcoin gives us a way to opt out, to rebuild, to return to sound money and sound communities. You don't have to accept the debasement. You don't have to be isolated. Those things are tied together. The dollar being made to be worth less because it's being printed at will to cover the debt. And you don't have to be isolated because there's welcoming communities out there that all you have to do is show up and say, I have something to teach you, or I need to learn something. Either one. It works. It's great. So my advice, yes, stack sats. A word on the price. It's right now about $59,000, which is dirt cheap. Happens roughly every 4 years. We're at the bottom of the cycle. If you bought Bitcoin to invest and make a quick buck, you're probably sad. If you bought Bitcoin because you had some excess cash you could squeeze out and make it go live somewhere else, and you're willing to hold on to it, hodler, hold on for dear life. You're probably breathing pretty easy because it's at the bottom. You can stack a few more sats, and soon that will be worth many times what you purchased it for. That's my advice to you. It's my quick advice. And secondly, don't just buy Bitcoin, but get involved with the Bitcoin community. I promise you, you've never met a group of people with the potential to be great friends with you. Of course, you're going to run into people that are there just to make a buck. You can discern that. You can tell the difference. Join the community. Make some friends. We love you. Greg will be back probably next week. Stack sats. Stay humble. Take care.